Welcome to the Martial Truth Podcast. Took a week off. My younger son was married, so wedding was great. Everything went great, and back to creating the podcast. As usual, let's get some stuff out of the way. Appreciate the support of the channel. Members are growing. All right. Closing in on 12,000 subscribers. Really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without the support of you guys. Hopefully down the road we'll be able to do some other different things with the podcast and keep things interesting and keep it going. So if you could support the channel for that $2.99 a month, it would be great. We're putting up a lot of material, a lot of instructional material, and various videos that people seem to really like. All right. The other thing is through the YouTube channel, you can also purchase gear, things we have, T-shirts, mugs, different stuff that with the different martial arts on it. So that's appreciated too. Those of you that have purchased products off the site, it really helps with supporting the channel. All right. I thought today I'd talk about something that is very important to me, and I'm not sure a lot of people understand what exactly it entails. And that's discipleship in Chinese martial arts. Next month, November 3rd, I'll be a disciple of Master Chen Zhanghua from Chen Style Tai Chi Chuan Practical Method for 20 years. So it's 20 years next month. Long time, okay? I began training in practical method with Master Chen probably just before 2000. So it's been about 25 years that I'm training in practical method. I'm one of the most senior disciples now in terms of time in. And I just thought I would talk about, to me, what it is being a disciple and giving my other martial arts friends who don't do maybe Chinese martial arts to understand what discipleship is and where it comes from. So discipleship originally was basically in China that someone would walk in and challenge the master. And, whoever won the challenge, the winner then would decide whether or not to get rid of, eliminate, kill the challenger, or the challenger may beg, kowtow to become a student of the master, of the person that defeated him. And that's where historically the idea of the master-disciple relationship starts in terms of martial arts in China. So it's a very simple concept. You go in, you challenge the master, you lose. You beg him by kowtowing, kneeling down, putting your head on the floor, and begging him to accept you as a student. Okay? So my discipleship ceremony, when I asked, in 2002, I attended one of the Hunyan World events up in Edmonton, Canada. And Master Chen had was giving a lecture. And during the lecture, I was sitting in the back next to one of my students, and he mentioned, "What are you doing for Tai Chi? Are you only taking from Tai Chi? But what are you giving to Tai Chi?" And I sat there, and I thought he was talking about me. And he said, "Are you sitting on the fence, or are you really going to jump in and go all in with Tai Chi?" So at that point, I thought he was talking about me because up until then, I was training with him on a regular basis, going up to Canada. He was coming to my school in New York twice a year. But I really hadn't taken the big step, which the big step would be asking to become a disciple. And it's a big step. To me, it was a big step. So I turned to my student. I said, "He's talking about me. I'm going to apply for discipleship." And my student looked at me like I was crazy. And he was like, "What? You're going to apply for discipleship?" "Yes, I'm going to apply for discipleship." So I approached the person that had introduced me to Master Chen. Out of respect for that person, I asked him to bring up the possibility of my discipleship with Master Chen Zhanghua. And he tried to talk me out of it. I could tell he was not a big fan of me becoming a disciple. You're a karate sensei. I don't really think this is something you should do. So I respectfully said to him, okay, I appreciate your opinion, but I'm giving you basically 2 weeks. If I don't hear from Master Chen in 2 weeks, then I'll contact him myself. So with that, I received an email from Master Chen, probably within 10 days or so, basically saying that, how could I become his disciple? I'm so well known in martial arts, and I'm so senior in these many arts, and, maybe, he's being very, very gracious. But me, I'm reading the email, and I'm kind of laughing. So, emails sometimes may not be clear. Text messages may not be clear. So for myself, I'm a little old school. I like to talk to someone on the phone. So I called him up and I said, can I be frank? And he said, yeah. I said, look, I know I can't touch you on my best day. I said, I feel that your level of ability is something I can strive to achieve the rest of my martial arts life. That other arts I studied, I just felt I wasn't getting the high level instruction that I was looking for. And that if I became a disciple, I felt that we could both grow old together and I could learn from him and it would be a great relationship. So with that, he said, all right, let me think about it further. So, unbeknown to me, there were a bunch of other disciples that weren't too thrilled with the idea of me becoming a disciple. Why? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. Okay. But anyway, there was an incident at school with the person that had introduced me to Master Chen, which led us to stop studying with him and train on our own. So all my guys were training with me. We were training together. Master Chen came in for a workshop. He decided he was going to accept me as a disciple, and he put me in charge of teaching Tai Chi in my own school and told the other person he had to go out and find his own way. Okay. So, in this video, I'll drop in some clips of my discipleship ceremony from 2003. My discipleship ceremony is a little bit different from the current discipleship ceremonies. Times change, things change. My discipleship ceremony involved me doing some physical things. I had to push hands with Master Chen. He corrected me on the form. He demonstrated a lot of techniques on me, so basically tossed me around. Great for me. All right. Anytime I get to feel his ability, that helps me to learn. And then at the end, I kowtowed, which is, similar to the bowing, the way we do in Japanese martial arts, where you're in what we call in Japanese martial arts, seiza. And I put my hands down, and I kowtowed or bowed to him 3 times. And then he helped me up, and he accepted me as a disciple. And that was 20 years ago, and it's possibly the best martial arts decision I ever made. Later on that year, we had another event up in Calgary, I believe. I think it was Calgary. So I came up and Master Chen said to me, you're going to demonstrate Yilu tonight, which is the main form of practical method. And he said, you're going to demonstrate it because there was only one disciple at your ceremony. I want the other disciples to see you do the form. I said, okay. So I said, well, should I do it with power? He says, yeah, do it really. I said, okay. So I went out, I started demonstrating the form, like my hair was on fire. And about a third of the way through, he stopped me and he said, okay, Mike, that's good. Okay. And then he looked at everybody in the audience where there was many disciples present, and Master Chen said to them, many of you told me I should not accept Mike as a disciple. He's a karate sensei. Now you see Mike not only knows karate, he also knows Chen-style Tai Chi Chuan practical method. Which was a little stunning to me that he said that, but he was sending a clear message that he was the master and he would decide who he would take as a disciple. And for me, I appreciate it. To this day, I appreciate it. All right. And for 20 years, I think the relationship has been great. For those of you that don't understand discipleship, basically, the master is saying now that we will have a father-son relationship, that he will treat the disciple as a son or daughter, right? And that he will train them seriously, okay? You'll hear the term indoor disciple, which is what I am. I'm an indoor disciple, all right? And then you'll hear, other people are outside the door. What this means is that when you're an indoor disciple, the master trains you differently. Now, people will say, well, what does that mean differently? Well, one, you're held to a much higher standard. So one of the things Master Chen has said to me that what becoming a disciple really means is, I'm never going to hear Master Chen tell me good. He's never going to say, Mike, that was great, that was fantastic. No, it's always about getting better. It's always about the master working on you to improve your ability, okay? The other thing with being a disciple is you should be held to a higher standard in terms of how you are, how you act, what you do, all right? This is very important. Don't embarrass the master. Think about what you're going to do before you do it, and make sure it doesn't become a reflection on the master or on the art, okay? These are important things. So, in becoming a disciple, it's a very romantic notion. And what do I mean by that? Well, we all remember, okay, the old Kung Fu series with David Carradine, and we would watch him talk to his martial arts masters, and they all would say these, amazing things that we'd all go, and they would be like, oh, that would be great, And, here I am, I'm a disciple of a Chinese martial arts master, a very high-level Chinese martial arts master, and it's a very romantic notion. It's a very romantic ideal. Well, people say, oh, you're a disciple. What does that mean, And, basically what it means is I have to work hard. And I have to work hard to, bring the art forward for the next generation. I have to teach it in a way, try to teach it in a way that the master would approve. So I don't pick and choose the things I like about practical method. I try to teach a well-rounded practical method program. So I don't just teach the form. I don't just teach the Yilu and the Erlu, the two forms that are primary to the style, okay? I teach fighting applications. I teach the body conditioning, okay? I teach all manners of push hands. I teach the foundations, okay? I teach the principles, okay? Seriously spend a lot of time on the principles, okay? So my students I treat as though they're also disciples. So I hold them to a high standard, okay? It's not a club where we get together, all right, where we just talk about Tai Chi and go through the form, okay, wave our arms around and call it a day, and I tell everybody how great they are. No. Being my student is a little bit more difficult. I'm a disciple of Master Chen. I'm held to a high standard. I hold my students to a high standard. That's why my students turn out to be pretty good, and they understand the system, all right? Many of my students have gone on to become disciples of Master Chen. So right now, I'd say there's currently about 10 to 15 of my students that are disciples of Master Chen. Now, I still teach them, but they're also taught by Master Chen. He's the master, so they're disciples of him, but they're also my students, okay, because I'm the one that's responsible for most of what they've learned, okay? So it's an interesting situation where, my students are my students, but they're also disciples of Master Chen. And so far, that's been going on now for well over 10 years, and there's been no problems. It's been great. Everybody knows their place, and it's no problem. Some of the things I've noticed, many of the people that were disciples before me are no longer very active. And this is what I mean about initially it's a very romantic notion. wow, I'm a disciple. I go through this ceremony. I'm a disciple of a Chinese martial arts master. It sounds crazy cool, right? And it is. But what happens is, after the romance wears off, it's kind of like a marriage, right? Initially, you're going out together, everything's hot and heavy, right? And, then it keeps going, and you decide, okay, let's get married, and we get married. And then, it's hot and cold, right? Marriage is like that, right? It becomes something you work at. I'm married 37 years. We're together over 40 years. So I'd like to think my marriage has been pretty successful. But it's something we have to work at. It's not always great. Most of the times it is. But, right, there's some times where there's ups and downs, right? And I think being a disciple is similar, all right? You're training, you feel you're not getting anywhere, and it can be extremely frustrating. Well, that's part of it, and you have to work through that. But some people, I think, hit a certain point and basically say, well, why am I doing this? I'm not getting anywhere. And they just kind of let it fade away, and they no longer are active as a disciple, and maybe are not training anymore. And this is normal. We see this in all martial arts. People that fall by the wayside, no matter how senior, no matter how long they're training. All right. But for me, I didn't do that. I've stuck with it. I'm sure there were many people in the beginning that thought I wouldn't. I think they probably thought I'd just be a flash in the pan, be there a couple of years and be gone. But that's not the case. I have a deep love for Chen style Tai Chi Chuan practical method. I have a deep love for Master Chen Jianghua, for the way he's treated me these 25 years. He's not only a great martial arts master, he's a great human being. All right? And I think disciples, and being a disciple, you have a responsibility to the master. And not just the master, but to the art. And that responsibility is are you teaching the art the way the master has taught it to you? And are you trying to bring that art forward? Are you trying to promote the art? Are you doing the right thing by your students? Are you really teaching them the way the master taught you? My training, especially the first several years, was rough. It was rough. It was physical. And those of you that have seen Master Chen demonstrate with me know he can go very hard with me, and I can take it. And not everybody can do that. And it's irrelevant whether you can or can't. But for me, it's been great because I can feel his power. He's never hurt me, all right? And you see I take some pretty good hits. But feeling that ability, trying to understand that ability, capture that ability for myself, has been one of the special things that I really enjoy. And I think people that are teaching this need to realize if you're not teaching the complete program the way Master Chen has taught you, if all you're really working on is the form, but he comes in for a workshop and he spends a lot of time doing partner work. Well, why aren't you doing partner work? I know my training involved a lot of application against actual attacks, punches, kicks, not just push hands. Are you doing that? Are you teaching that? Are you teaching the art the way the master taught it to you? So I think disciples need to take a step back and realize, has Tai Chi become a habit? And I discussed this with Master Chen. Me and Master Chen like coffee. So Master Chen said, Mike, I'm sure like me, every morning you wake up, you have a cup of coffee. That's 100% fact, right? But, he goes, I think for some people, that's what Tai Chi has become. And it's okay, he says, maybe that's what they're getting out of Tai Chi. And if that's what they want, that's fine. But for me, martial arts in general never becomes a habit, a cup of coffee. It's what I do, it's what I am. I'm a professional martial artist. I was a professional warrior for most of my adult life. That whole time, I was also a professional martial artist. I take the idea of being a disciple of Master Chen extremely serious. I know my approach can turn some people off because I am serious and I do it as a martial art. It's not a cup of coffee for me. All right. I believe the health aspect and the martial aspect go hand in hand. And if you're only doing Tai Chi for health, you're not doing Tai Chi. If you're only doing Tai Chi for martial art, you're not doing Tai Chi. So you have to do it where it's the complete Tai Chi. All right. And there's only two ways to practice Tai Chi: right and wrong. So if you're just going through the motions and that makes you feel good, okay, but understand you're not doing the real Tai Chi. All right? And as a disciple, it's our responsibility to try to do the real Tai Chi. Okay? And to represent the master. And that when the master comes and he sees our students, he says, oh, these guys, they're working hard. They're moving forward. I know Master Chen has said to me on more than one occasion, when he goes to the school in New York, they're always ready to learn. He could tell that they've worked the last year. And I'm a strict teacher. I bust chops. I'm all the time, don't toss. All the time, work, don't move. All the time this, all the time that. And again, my Tai Chi is not the best, right? It's not the greatest. But I work to try to embody what the master wants us to do. Okay? And to represent the master is an important thing to me. And I try to represent him in a true way. And, sometimes I cover the master Zoom classes. And initially, when I was first covering the Zoom classes, I was trying to kind of teach the way he does. And then I said to myself, what are you doing? I said, you're not Chen Zhanghua. You're Mike Calandra. So teach the way you teach. And I got private messages saying how much they enjoyed it. That, yeah, it is different from Master Chen. My approach is different. But sometimes a couple of different approaches can be good. Maybe I explain something a little bit different that helps you to understand it. And then maybe one of my students has Master Chen explain something a little bit different that helps them to understand it. All right? So, it's important that we struggle to present the material in a way that benefits the art and benefits the master's confidence in us becoming disciples. Disciples have left for different reasons, okay? Whatever, okay? I know I'm not going anywhere. I just keep, like I say, plugging along. I keep working on the various elements. I try to get better. I try to present the material. Every night I teach, I listen to myself when I do these podcasts. I try to pay a little more attention. I try to improve on how I speak. I try to improve on how I teach. I do that with all martial arts. So it's important. Discipleship's a big step. I've been lucky in that I've helped to facilitate several people becoming disciples, including one here out in Arizona recently. I appreciate how much they appreciate the fact that I help them become disciples. But the way I look at it is I'm helping the master. I'm not selfish. I'm not interested in being the only disciple in my schools where I teach. Okay. When I'm asked, some people still think I'm in New York. They don't realize I'm in Arizona now for 3 years. I'll still get a phone call or an email. I'd like to come try out your Chen style Tai Chi practical method class. And I'm like, sure, but I'm not there anymore. I'm in Arizona. And like, oh, well, who's teaching? And I'll say, well, James Waller took over the school, but there's, a minimum of 10 disciples at the school of Master Chen. And they'll go, oh. And I'm like, yeah, they're all training, a substantially long time. I mean, several people in New York are training 20 years. A couple of them are training over 20 years with Master Chen. So not just training with me, they've been experiencing Master Chen at a minimum once a year, if not twice a year, for all that time. And then some of them have gone to China, some of them have gone up to Canada for the different events. So they've been exposed to Master Chen a lot. So, so people go and they're surprised, like, oh, these guys really know what they're doing. And, and they train there and they move forward. So that was my goal. My goal was to develop students that could actually teach the material and become good disciples. So I hope the same thing happen here in Arizona. I hope there to be more disciples from out here in Arizona. And the discipleship roles grow. Master Chen's ability to move the art forward for future generations becomes greater. All right. I'll say again, for those of my martial arts friends, whether you do karate or jiu-jitsu or anything, if you see that Master Chen Zhanghua is going to be doing a workshop in your area and you can go, I highly recommend it. I've had several of my contemporary karate friends, senior dans, come. And they're shocked at the ability level. They're shocked at the fact that the principles we hear about in books like the Bubishi and different ancient Chinese books that have all these principles, when they meet Chen Zhanghua, that he embodies them. He can do them with his body. So it's not someone talking the principle. He lives the principles. He is the principles. And the thing with him is he's able to actually teach you how to understand it. He speaks excellent English. He was a school teacher for many years, all right? And he's able to really, really explain the art in a way that a lot of other masters can't, because their command of the language just isn't there. So I highly recommend, if you get the opportunity, to attend one of his workshops. Even if you do not continue with practical method, the experience of experiencing him is something you won't forget. You won't forget it at all. All right. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed this one. Being a disciple is very important to me. I thought I'd explain what it is. Just as a further note, has no religious implications at all. Okay, so don't concern yourself with that. Like I said, it's a father-son relationship. Once again, thanks for the support of the channel. Consider becoming a member. All right, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.